of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And before we get into public comment, we have Mr. Joe Tandy here this evening. And Joe, I understand you're coming off our planning board, and we want to take a moment to recognize you and thank you for your years of service to the town of Fletcher. It is incredibly valuable, and we appreciate you. And Eric, did you have some words as well?
I want to read something. Just a little letter Joe wanted me to read.
Sure.
Thank you, folks in Fletcher, for letting me serve for 17 years. It has been a pleasure. If my health was stronger, I would be happy to continue. I am proud of all the progress the town of Fletcher has made and enjoy being a retired resident here and look forward to see how Fletcher continues to grow. I grew up not far from Fletcher. Good luck to all. Sincerely, Joe Tandy. June 9th, 2025. P.S. If any really hard problems such as hurricanes, etc. arrive, feel free to call me and we can all pray together. So. I just want to add too that it's like Joe's been with us on the board. I think it was about 17 years. I think 17 years, and just want to really say how much I've enjoyed working. Give a lot to the town and contributed to so much of the ordinance amendments we've brought before you over the last few years. So,
Kind of good start with that privilege and secretary with that. So thank you.
Wonderful. Joe, we thank you. We have a plaque that we want to present to you, so I'll come down there and present it to you.
I just want to tell Joe thank you also. I got to sit next to him on the planning and zoning board for about, I don't know how many years it was, but we had a good time, and you really helped me out a bunch when I first came on the board. So I appreciate your time and your patience with me when I first came on. And I just want to say thank you, sir.
Any other words, council? All righty. On behalf of council, we thank you. I'm going to present you with this plaque, Joe.
coming here.
Sure, absolutely.
I think we've got all the way to Super Bowl. I understand how much number
We thank you. We're going to keep on pushing forward, and we appreciate you for laying the foundation for us to continue to push forward in Fletcher. Thank you, Joe. All righty. We're going to move into public comment. We have one individual signed up, Miss Maisie Goldstein. Maisie, if you want to take the podium and say your name, your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin when the clerk is ready.
Hi, my name is Maisie Goldstein. I live at 142 Brickton Village Circle. I'm the president of the COA at the complex, and came to the meeting back in March, and I'm more here just to follow up to the comments I had made then. It's basically concerns we have in our development of the heavy commercial traffic on Old Hendersonville Road, which we are right off of. And I believe the board was possibly going to reach out to the recycling company as one of the companies. And just the road is in really bad shape because of the heavy traffic. And also there's, the addition of the Fernleaf School on our road, so that's a lot more traffic on that road. And I've been in touch with the COA president for the development next to us, and she was even mentioning that they're having issues with rats based on the recycling center across the road from us. So it's just, and then the last item is the intersection coming into our road. It's just a blind turn, and it's very dangerous, and just with the addition of school there now, if anything can be done at that intersection. And I did bring a map, because I felt when I came here last time that outside of Preston, no one else really kind of knew, so maybe I would leave this if this is helpful, and I kind of circled the area where that intersection is, if that would be helpful for the board to have.
The intersection where the church is?
Right.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mark, if I remember correctly, the town, we did reach out to recycling company, correct?
We did.
And then, on the point about Old Brickyard Road and Old Hendersonville Road, I think we also reached out to NCDOT, and from my understanding, they are looking at that intersection, but I think the challenge is the funding piece, the component of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they've done a
Yeah,
kind of,
they did.
a schematic on it.
Yeah, some
a
conceptual.
potential design,
Yeah.
a concept really on it, and it was
Yeah.
for a traffic circle, and
Yeah.
I shared that with y'all.
I've seen it, yeah.
Has any consideration been given, though, to that road for the weight? You know, like, was that road originally built to have that heavy of vehicles on it? You know, those type of things, because it really is, you know, kind of wavy, and there's huge potholes. There's potholes at our entrance from where the trucks kind of veer a little bit if there's other cars coming the other way. And, you know, and that's on our property, kind of, at the,
There is a place on DOT, NCDOT's website for the pothole part of it.
Okay.
Where you can go, and they're supposed to respond to those within about 48 hours, send somebody out to look at them.
okay.
And so NCDOT added that just because they can't be everywhere all the time, and it just helps put the other people's eyes on that. So
Okay, well, thank you, I appreciate it.
And then, one final comment I would make, just referring to Fernley, it'd be my hope that this upcoming school year, that traffic would decline a good amount, because they'll be going back down to the lower campus,
Yes,
from my understanding. They had to send everybody up there.
of course, okay. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Maisie.
And that, just one other comment about the traffic situation, that intersection, rather, Old Brickyard and Old Hendersonville coming together. DOT had worked on a traffic safety study, and that's one of the recommendations for an improvement that came out of it. So they have looked at it. We have reached out to them about analyzing that for some suggestions for improvements there. So,
Yeah. Well, somebody lives over there, I can't agree enough, so
Yeah.
we get it.
I'm sure.
We get it. That's all we have signed up for public comments. Anybody else that wishes to speak during the public comment period? All right, here now we're going to close the public comment period and move into the approval of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented, council? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries and the minutes are approved. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. The only update I'll say is that I thought Parks and Rec and Auction House did very well with the concert series. I went by for a couple of minutes and it seemed like it was well attended, and it looked like setup was pretty easy. I talked with Emily for a little bit and she seemed pleased, so well done to them.
thank you for sharing that. I wasn't able to get out there, hadn't debriefed yet with staff. It was probably tomorrow morning doing that. So
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, the only question I would have is, I didn't stay long enough to see, I'm kind of curious about how the shuttle
The
worked out.
shuttle work, yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the numbers, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
I know it rained.
Yeah, it did rain a
Now,
little
we are
bit.
planning on having our next one at the park, is that correct? Is that,
Believe that's what
Well,
they
we-
said.
well,
Yeah, I think we said
evaluate
one
this
in,
one.
yeah.
We was gonna evaluate this one to see.
Yeah.
I think that's what we come up
because
with.
Yes.
I've talked to several people at the park just lately that were questioning why we were having it there since it was a town event. They would really like to see it at the park. And so I just told them I would mention at tonight's meeting that was brought up.
I know that was always a concern in the past, if people
Yeah.
wanted a park, maybe
So
splitting
one's
it.
fine, I agree,
Yeah,
and I
splitting
think
it.
maybe if we get the next one at the park, it'd be nice.
All righty. Any other updates or comments, council? All righty, sounds good. Moving on to the consent agenda. Just a reminder that we did add the approval of the ABC board to adjust our working capital to 1.5 million this week. Any questions or comments to either of those items on the consent agenda? All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion.
There a motion to approve the consent agenda, is there a second?
Second.
There a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries and the consent agenda is approved. Next item of discussion, item number 7, we have the public hearing to consider potential amendments to Appendix 1 of the Fletcher Land Development Code, the flood damage prevention ordinance, and we have Eric here, and I think we have some others here with them. Eric, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I jump in, I just want to introduce Mike Hanson and Chris Brown from McGill Associates are here with us tonight. Chris drove in from Hickory, not too far. Mike's here from Raleigh, but doing other business in the region, I hope so. But anyway, I also want to mention too that Mike has been my primary contact for the kind of the bigger picture on our stormwater program, and then since I've been originally talking with Mike, we've been working with Chris for a few years on our stormwater program. So I knew these guys well before Helene, and Mike was actually my first call after Helene when we started needing to get into the substantial damage assessment process. And Mike rolled into our parking lot about 3 o'clock the Monday after the storm. He just happened to be on his way to Canton and managed to get here and get into that response like the storm was on Saturday, that Friday,
yeah.
Saturday. And Mike was here talking with us on Monday. So it's just been a pleasure working with these guys. Chris has been hard at it on preparing the amendments that are in front of you. And they're here for any kind of technical questions that come up that I can't answer. But that being said, I can jump in and kind of go back over briefly what
Sure.
we've talked about a couple times. But the main substantive changes that came recommended from the planning board involved increasing the elevation requirement from the current 3 feet above base flood elevation to 4 feet above base flood elevation for residential uses. The decision was made to recommend leaving our 3-foot elevation requirement for non-residential construction, which is already a higher standard than state model ordinance calls for. There was also a move to recommend prohibiting a few additional specific uses from floodplains altogether. Reminding you that within the 100-year floodplain, or formerly the 1% floodplain, there are 2 categories. The floodway, that's the area that's most likely to flood in a storm event. It's also referred to often as a non-encroachment area. We've already been prohibiting any development in floodways with a few exceptions of things like recreation, agriculture, infrastructure, and utilities, and that's with careful engineered modeling or map adjustments. And in my time here, we've not had any map adjustments based on any kind of development in the floodway. So really, these substantive changes that we're talking about are in the allowable areas for development known as the flood fringe. So we are recommending that, I'll read the list here, private and public schools, child-adult daycares, child/adult daycare, housing for the elderly, which can include nursing homes and other form of assisted living, multifamily residential, public works facilities, and any mission-critical facilities that include things like police, fire, EMS, hospitals, emergency response centers, data centers, and any other facilities deemed essential for important operations, services, and needing to ensure continuous operation. So those are the recommended prohibited uses. The rest of the amendments that are highlighted in your packet were drawn up basically to get the ordinance consistent with the state model ordinance. We didn't spend any time talking with them about the planning board. We just said that McGill had kind of combed through our ordinance. They coordinated for some feedback from the state on our draft, who the state in turn provided some recommendations for some tweaks that are in the draft before you tonight. Chris brought up with me today a couple of very minor things that I wanted to point out so that if a motion is made to approve these recommendations tonight, I would just ask you to say with corrections. On page 3 of the material in your packet, it's a definition for existing building and existing structure. Means any building and or structure for which the start of construction commenced before the effective date of the floodplain management regulations adopted by a community. In there's a comma with the word dated. We're just going to strike the word dated and end that with a period. So that's a minor little tweak from what's in your packet. The other item was a typo left in accidentally on page 19. We're in that big highlighted section at the very bottom of the page 19, small letter D. There was a reference to, there was the word insert number of years. The insert number of years was left in. That's going to be struck. It's kind of in the 4th line down at the very end. For each building or structure, comma, the 1-year minimum required. Chris is going to clean that up to get rid of the insert number of years prompt that we had in there originally. So that is the nature of the amendments that we brought to you. One thing that I didn't include on the item agenda for tonight is, if you'll recall, we do have a moratorium in place. The idea is that we were going to lift the moratorium once we adopted any new regulations. So if the council's happy with these amendments and moves to adopt them tonight, I'd ask for a second motion to officially lift that moratorium on development in floodplains. And just to assure you too, folks have not been beating down our doors looking to develop in the floodplain. Basically, we have one industrial site that had been kind of waiting to find out if there was any changes significant that were going to cause them to not be able to build a building, but they're waiting to hear from us. And Mark and I have a pending conversation with someone that's got questions about our town center property. So, be happy to answer any questions, and if you have any questions for the folks from McGill, they're here, and we'll go from there.
All right, any questions or comments, council? Jim?
So these are going to apply to houses that are also, that got more than 50%, are now going to have to
Well,
meet that new.
The SD structures are technically, remember the substantial damage structures are allowed to go back to what was the previous, what would become the previous code as of tomorrow theoretically. We've already seen a few replacement homes go in. There are still folks that have been pending, but the letters, the notices of substantial damage that gave official instruction was come into compliance with current ordinance provisions. So we wouldn't be changing them on that. I'm happy to report that a couple of the ones I've seen a resolution to did go voluntarily higher than 3 feet above base flood elevation.
Good for that.
But won't be able to, we won't force it on those SD structures. I'll just strongly encourage it.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I'm glad this is before us. I know we had the public hearing and everything, but I think we really have a duty to make sure we're keeping our residents safe while also not stifling economic improvement in town. So props to the planning board and you, Eric, and thank you all for y'all's work. All righty. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing for potential amendments to Appendix 1 of the Fletcher Land Development Code?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a motion to enter a public hearing? Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second to open a public hearing? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor for entering public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All righty, we are into the public hearing. We don't have anybody signed up. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Hearing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All righty, we are outside of public hearing. So now we just need a motion to approve the amendments to Appendix 1 of the Fletcher Land Development Code as presented in our agenda packets with corrections.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the amendments are approved. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
And then we also need to lift the moratorium. All right, do you have a motion to lift the moratorium on development in the floodplain?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to lift the moratorium on development in the floodplain. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are lifting the moratorium. Eric, again, thank you, and you all, thank you as well.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on, discussion item number 8, the public hearing and approval of the budget ordinance. Mr. Manager, the floor is yours.
I want to say I'm glad to see you have some good amendments made to
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you.
floodplain ordinance. Seem to be reasonable in light of everything we're dealing with and limitations for development in that area. So if you can bear with me for a minute here, I'm going to get my presentation ready to go here. And it's really long, and we really need to do something about
Is it
that.
case sensitive or it might be cap?
That's what I'm worried that, yeah, I've got, and I can't tell if the cap's locked. No, it's on.
You're not going to get locked out, are you?
I've got Matthew on speed dial if you need it.
I might need him back on.
I'm tired of changing my
We have a
password.
weekly scheduled meeting.
You know, I did a dry run on this earlier today, just to make sure it would work. And we got it to work, we got through the bugs, but I don't know what, it's like the caps lock is on or something.
There you go.
Ta-da.
There we go, 6 times the charm. Okay, voila. So happy to present to you a very brief version of the budget. Obviously, you've seen the very detailed version of this that I presented to you back at May 8th at our budget workshop. We made some final tweaks to the budget based on the last set of values, so we updated revenues on that. Made a couple other slight adjustments on the expense side, mostly our property and liability premiums updated in there. And then one capital item with some cameras in Public Works. So, and then we're required to have this draft budget available for public comment and review. We have to do that no later than June 1st. We had it available May 28th. Had not received any comments on that. And then we have to advertise it for 10 days for a public hearing. So we're holding the required public hearing tonight. And I'll just, again, I want to acknowledge, thank council, mayor and council here for all the time and the budget meetings, getting up to this and getting a version that hopefully you'll adopt tonight. Also want to acknowledge our staff for all the work that they put into this. because I do not do this alone. So thankfully, I've got a really good team behind me that helps put this information, analyze it, and get to a point that it's a budget you're comfortable with, and the public is. And then the other thing, we are fortunate, I mentioned Hurricane Helene in the budget message that y'all had a copy of, and just acknowledge our brothers and sisters and other municipalities and counties in this area that were hit significantly harder than us. I mean, yes, we had damage to private property here and public facilities, so town facilities with the park, but not nearly a devastation that some other areas dealt with. So we were fortunate, good to have good reserves, fund balance to help weather the storm, so to speak, on this, but that's another reason why you do it, and we're fortunate. And so I can go on the history of Fletcher and kind of us being in a good position to do some great things. So with that, I'll run through. I got a brief PowerPoint presentation. I don't think we have anyone signed up to speak here, and then hopefully we can move to adoption. So again, this is our fiscal year 2025 through 2026 budget, our operating budget. Some highlights. The total recommended budget for the fiscal year, and let me get this on a nicer presentation. I don't like that. That looks a little better. The total recommended budget is $9,995,316, so approaching $10 million operating budget. It's a moderate increase from our prior budget of just over 9.7 million. Our increases in revenues are mostly coming through increases in property taxes through the increases in value. We've had a couple of years where sales tax was the main driving force of the largest growing part of our revenues, and this year was not. But thankfully, even through the storm, that our property tax projections, valuations here were at least moderately improved. So, and this budget then includes a tax rate to remain at 28 cents, so no increase in our tax rate or increase in taxes, on property taxes. And the biggest part of that increase from property taxes are our ad valorem values, we call them, is from real values from land and buildings. And there's other components of that, like business, personal, machinery, and equipment, things like that. So not quite 1% growth in the real value portion. So our largest increase in expenses, and it's not atypical for most budgets, is going to be on the personnel side. We're a service organization. So, but we had the addition of a full-time position in Public Works that's included in this, a maintenance specialist, which is very much needed. We continue to see a lot of growth in town. We're adding households. And Public Works is one of those departments, in direct service, particularly for single-family home residences, where it's going to increase that workload. And we have not had an increase in staff in that department in over 20 years. Biggest reason is we've been able to do some efficiency improvements with automation of trash collection and semi-automation, if you will, of brush collection, which are two very time-intensive, high-volume activities of our Public Works department. This also includes a cost of living adjustment at 2.5% for all staff, and then our merit pay performance evaluation system for those who qualify. We are benefiting from a decrease in our health insurance coverage costs, which is, if you run an organization worrying about health insurance and increases in premium, we've had plenty of increases in premiums, and we've had some decreases. And this is keeping our current plan at the existing benefit level with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So a 5.2% 5.2% decrease in the premiums has been very helpful. We also switched our dental plan because we got a quote for a decrease in premiums from principal to to Delta, excuse me. Our inflationary factors with recycling necessitated a 3% increase in those costs with our private hauler. We have a monthly household fee, and that went up by 3% as dictated by our contract with them. We are with our town center project, going to be looking, continued retail analysis and recruitment through retail strategies for another year. Oops, go back one slide. And then also marketing our property. You have a copy of a updated marketing document that I've been talking to you about for some time now, and hopefully it's the final version and we'll have that available and be putting that out there. Some other highlights. The capital needs, we try and satisfy capital needs in both within our capital improvement plan or CIP and in the operating budget. On the operating budget side, the police department, we're happy to share that recommended, and it's included in this budget for adoption this evening, hopefully, the purchase and installation of license plate reader cameras. There will be 4 of them to be strategically located in parts of town to help with crime investigations and finding suspects and reported crimes. It's also known by the name Flock Cameras, and that's a brand that's commonly used. Also on the operating side, Public Works, we have in here a tire changer cameras for not all the vehicles that they requested, but for the brush trucks. And that's at $4,000. And then a zero-turn riding mower. It's just some of the examples. And then on that CIP, or the capital improvement plan side, just a reminder what resources that go into that. It's a 5-year plan that identifies major capital needs. We will be updating, this is year 5 of the 5-year capital improvement plan, and we'll be updating that this fall and developing a new 5-year CIP. So this is year 5 going in. It is funded. We're recommending it be funded in this proposed budget with 6 cents of that 28-cent tax rate, what the levy produces on it. 4 of those 6 cents are dedicated to projects supported by debt or debt service, and the remaining 2 cents of that 6 cents of tax levy is used for projects paid for with cash or pay-as-you-go. And what's being funded within our CIP, we have 4 projects that are funded on the debt service side this year. Of course, our town hall improvements, that's a 40-year loan, and we're, 11 years into that. And we may pay some of this down earlier at some point, but that's for the town hall, the acquisition of land north of town hall, and the reconstruction of Old Cane Creek Road. The Highway 25 land acquisition, that was part of the land acquisition to have more property to work with for the town center project. And then copier lease payments that we have to classify into debt service as a governmental accounting standards board requirement, and subscription payments as well. And then on that cash side, or the pay-as-you-go, we have 2 police cars in there included. We normally try and put 3 through, but the police department chief had indicated that 2 were only needed, so we appreciate bringing that down. But normally it's a 3-car rotation. 2 this year. Cane Creek Greenway extension, a contribution towards that to help with some of the grants that we're going after, and then just general appropriations to pay for the expense. This is to go west on the Cane Creek Greenway extension. And then the last thing, computer workstation replacements that IT had mentioned. It's a second phase. So that's kind of a brief highlight of everything, real high-level view for, this presentation. Obviously, I went into a lot of detail and, of course, more discussion at the budget workshop back in May. So I have a few charts, graphs here, just kind of illustrate a couple things. This first one is a bar chart here comparing departmental expenses or expenditures or budgets the current fiscal year and to this one that I'm presenting. And so the light blue is the current fiscal year, the kind of magenta color is this budget I'm presenting. And you'll see probably the biggest increases, I'll run cursor over it, fire department, they have the biggest, public works, and then police department. And that's because some of the capital things, the additional position in public works. And I would also mention on the fire that we added a half cents in there in the tax rate, so that had an impact on that. Some of the ones decreased, so CIP, if you look at that, it's a drop. And that's because we were doing 7 cents of that 28 cents, and we went to 6 cents on that it's funded. And we had some slight drops in Parks and Rec because we have some personnel expense savings with some of the turnover there. And IT is another one that dropped a little bit. And that's because we have less capital projects within IT this year.
Then also that half cent in the fire, we're also talking with them about fire inspections as well,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yes. And that's not included or reflected in this as far as the bar chart
Sure.
comparison. But yes, thanks for mentioning that. That is, and we'll be working on some type of agreement or memorandum of understanding on that.
Did Jello retract his request for an employee, or is that still on also?
No, that's
That's in
it.
there.
So the Public Works Maintenance Specialist that is a part of
It's
this
still
budget.
part, okay.
Yeah,
Just make sure.
it is included. And again, I think something very much needed for that department
Yeah.
to keep up with everything going on. And I'm really kind of shocked we've been able to do it with, 8, 9 people in there, including
Yeah.
our director for all these years. But it's just getting to a point, like we switched to 5 days for trash collection. We used to be on 4 for, forever, since we've been doing trash collection until last year. This is just an exploded pie chart here, and I won't try and go through all the colors. It's a little busy. Public safety, our fire, the yellow is obviously a large part of the pie here if you try and look at it in this type of illustration. Then that kind of pinkish color down there, or salmon maybe, is police department, and then that blue into public works, and then CIP up here with that right above it. So it just gives you kind of another little illustration of kind of where's the money going among our departments and things funded. And then expenditure by category, so this kind of exploded pie chart by category. So the general government, this kind of bluish color up here, that's covering, governing board, admin, planning and zoning, parks and rec, IT, professional services, and that's our second largest category-wise piece of pie. And then public safety, you can see down here on the bottom, is that biggest portion, and then to public works and facilities, that kind of aqua color, and then over that yellowish to CIP. And then this next one on those categories probably illustrates it a little better. So again, public safety getting a large portion of that, of the resources, and then down to general government and all those departments covered, public works, and then down to CIP. So those are just some brief charts to show that, and that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if there's any questions at this point. I know we shared a lot of information with you through the process here of talking about, projects, expenses, staff requests, what's going on with services. But, and again, I feel very fortunate to be working on a budget. They're never easy, but I will say, our budgets for the town of Fletcher, and this is because we're very fortunate with a broad tax base and people who pay their taxes, our residents and our businesses, and do a very good job of doing that. And just enough business and industrial activity here. We've been, we've had a lot of things to work with, so that definitely makes my job easier presenting a budget to you. And, we feel for our neighbors who have worked through much harder process, and they just having problems with cash flow.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
Yeah, well, thank you to you, Mark, and the rest of the staff. I mean, you all did an exceptional job with the budget this year, as you all do every year. And to your point, we are really fortunate when I look at, Asheville and Buncombe County and see that there are raising taxes, and fortunately in our county and in our town, we're not in that position. So certainly something to be grateful for. Any questions or comments for Mark? All righty. We need to have a public hearing. So do we have a motion to open the public hearing for the budget ordinance?
Make a motion.
Do we have a motion to open the public hearing? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we're in a public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Guessing not. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we just need to approve the budget ordinance. So if somebody wants to make the motion to approve budget ordinance number 0-25-04.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the budget ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget ordinance. Please, thank y'all. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the budget ordinance, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the budget ordinance is approved, and we thank you all. All righty. And moving into your town manager's report, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. I know last week I talked to you about the park repairs, various park repairs at the Billmore Community Park. So our first project with the ball fields, the courts, and the dog park we're quickly making progress here towards the end to hopefully wrap this up soon. Our Parks and Rec director told me that they're closing the multi-use courts off so they can finish that off, or making sure that some type of barrier or signage, et cetera, for people to stay off so they can finish that. So that should be done this week, I guess, weather permitting. They had to take some of the fencing down and put that back up. The ball fields are quickly nearing completion. Thank you.
They look good.
I think they look really good out there. And then the last thing, the project to bid out the repairs to the bridge and then some of the stream bank repairs. We did another addendum with our engineering firm, McGill Associates, and had to extend the deadline for bids out several times. I mentioned that last week. So tomorrow is our deadline at 2 for bid opening, for a public bid opening. And so we're just hopeful we'll get a minimum number of bids, and worst case, if we don't, there's a short period to re-advertise, and we can go from there with whatever comes in, as long as you all are comfortable with what that responsible low bidder is. So we'll let you know on the results of the bids after tomorrow afternoon. And so that's moving along. Street resurfacing project, I mentioned a little bit about that last week. We got our only pay app on it, and we'll be checking that closely for any punch list items. The stormwater review within that neighborhood over in Fletcher Hills, in front of 96 Wilkie Way and the property behind that. I don't have yet from McGill a recommendation on their kind of analysis options, what to do there. But as soon as we do, we'll be sharing that with you, so you're aware of that, especially if it needs any additional appropriations to handle it. Town Center project, I mentioned, of course, Martin Lewis, who is our former developer of record with Lewis Real Estate Group, has expressed interest. They're interested in taking a run at this again, and he's having the engineer he's working with, which you all know, Will Bowie, who had been part of that team before with WGLA, is trying to gather information. They've reached out to our engineering firm, and I'm meeting with McGill, our engineering firm, the end of this week to go over that analysis that they've been working on some development scenarios, looking at the environmental and fill requirements and some different iterations, so that we can share that with the developer team. And last thing, I emailed you all, and I know I've been talking to you for some time about updating the marketing document. I finally got a draft back from Summit Marketing. I think I emailed it to you, and you all have a hard copy. And if you have any problems with any part of it or suggestions, let me know, because we'd like to, I know we're in a very electronic digital age, and we'll obviously be finding places to send this to electronically and have available, but we also want to make some hard copies of this as well.
There's a question on 3. This is our vision. If you look at that, I know it says library space. I think that was pretty much well gone away. I didn't know if that was, I didn't want to throw something out there like false advertisement that the county commercial did away at that committee. Very much well, dissolved and everything else. Is that still on the radar? That's why I'm kind of curious. Along with community colleges, again, that's one of the things we tried to that didn't really pan out again. And the pedestrian connection and parkway. Is that the Fletcher Connect? Because if that was that kind of 4 years ago, that kind of died away too, because that was taking away people's property and eminent domain, and also it was $80 million estimated back then. Now it's probably over $100 million. And it probably won't be able to do that because we can barely get the greenway to the our Meritor property. So that's why I'm kind of curious, do we keep them in there and knowing that's probably not going to happen, or?
Well, let me, I guess, say a few things on each of those.
Yeah.
And we can strike this, and that's why I wanted to talk to you all about it. The library space, that's not an active discussion right now, but it is a space we'd like to still have. And and if you all want to strike it, that's fine.
I was just curious about that, because if somebody wants to, I know if we keep a section right here and we can develop that, and we know that there's going to be a library nowhere near the future, then.
Yeah, and this isn't restricting a space for like the library, it's just saying it's a potential use on there. But, I mean, right now, there isn't active dialogue with the county as a partner, because that's, so.
2 years ago, or a year ago, didn't they say no, and that's why
Yeah.
they dissolved the community that did that, and I still want to be like false advertisement if you're throwing it out there.
Right.
I'd like to see it remain there, and I guess my only point is there, and really the community college space too. I mean, nothing here is concrete. I mean, it is just a vision, and so it's a conceptual thing. And then my other point there would be, we've had some turnover on the county commission. Of course, we don't know for sure whether we can get it done, but I mean, it was a different iteration of that commissioners when we had those discussions. So I think it actually might be worth a while at some point, maybe in this upcoming budget year, to revisit those conversations.
And the pedestrian connection, is that the Fletcher connector you're talking about? That we talked about, I guess in 2021, it's come up and taking up people's properties and
What I
And by eminent domain,
the way
it's
I'm-
$80 million
I know what you-
worth.
Yeah, the way I'm interpreting this, and the way that we've worked on part of Fletcher Town Center, that's really, it's referring more to connection to the park. And then, really the low-hanging fruit, and I'll just say, much more realistic greenway extension or greenway connections is the Cane Creek Greenway. So, but it's always been in the plans to try and connect the downtown area to the park.
Well, maybe.
And the existing greenways. So, I mean, we can adjust the language on that, or.
Yeah.
Well, you already got it here, it says Greenway Master Plan, which has that connection to the Cane Creek and also the Meritor and everything. That right there sounds like it's the Fletcher Connect, which is 80 million, we can barely afford to get there, a greenway to the
Right.
Meritor property, and again, I'd say it's way past 100 million now. I just want to put anything in there that's false advertisement, I guess, where I can see they're keeping the library space, like you're saying, and also the community
Well,
college.
maybe we could just change the language to specify the Cane Creek Greenway system.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it'll be
Or we
appropriate.
could take out the Greenway Master Plan reference, or
Well, you-
we could just specify to Greenway, to Cane Creek.
Well, in the middle it says Wine Fletcher, it already has the Greenway Master Plan in
Okay.
there.
Is the Greenway Master Plan the same thing as Fletcher Connects?
No,
Just
it's
to
two
be-
different ones.
That's two different things. Yeah, Trevor's reference,
Yeah, I remember the
big one
pedestrian
that
plan,
was
the
like-
bike path
It was
plan, yeah, yeah.
updated, yeah.
It was called,
bike path plan.
yeah, it was called this right here,
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
Fletcher
remember.
Connect pedestrian connection, and, yeah, that's the name for that.
We could, maybe it may suggest that pedestrian connections to Park and Cane Creek Greenway system, would that?
That's what it says now.
No, it says Greenway system, but more specifically the Cane Creek.
Cane Creek, yeah, I guess you could. And I know the picture up there it's an old picture, does it need to be updated?
Yeah.
Because it don't have if I glance it real quick, if I was doing developments, I guess a lot of places I can develop it, but it don't have like all your apartment complexes and everything, so it kind of minimizes it.
I think they took, yeah, we can try and get a more up-to-date one, or maybe have something flown. I think that was from drone footage. We had a bunch of pictures taken when it was first, the first iteration of this, like 10 years ago, and they had drone shots, and like the Groves at Town Center wasn't built yet. So
I think it'd
maybe
be good.
update the picture, or?
Update the picture, I think
Yeah.
And everything else looks, to me, looks good.
So maybe just pedestrian connections to Park and Cane Creek Greenway system, okay? All right. Are you okay with leaving in then the library and the,
If that's the case, I do agree with the mayor right there. We
Okay.
might want to reach out and see if.
I think it's
spark a
worth
fire.
think it's worth leaving.
revisiting at some point during this next year, just to see.
so leave it in?
I think
Okay,
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the community college, and, I mean, as the mayor stated, right now, timing-wise,
Probably not the best.
it's not gonna happen
Yeah.
because of, all the expenses that they're dealing with coming out of, Helene. But in a year or two, these are things, as they look at capital improvements for community college system and any other projects that are county facilities, the library could be back on the table, and if you've got supporters for the project, that can make it happen.
Yeah.
So, and for some of our newer council members, not to get too far off in the weeds of the library, but we offered up, we've done a bunch of things through the years, and we've proffered land, so just having the land available, and whether it was deeded over or leased, we've offered up cash through capital reserve monies that we have, 2.6 million, just for capital project. And that's not included in our unassigned fund balance. So, our unassigned fund balance is what, over 6 million, or we're at 65% fund balance right now. So there are other resources that we've tried to be partners to try and do a joint deal, but.
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that feedback and looking at it like that. Yeah, that picture would probably get some, probably quickly could get a shot done aerial that's more up to date on that.
Yeah, you can't really see
With
the,
the park in there too, it looks really nice, because it's got the courts and the sidewalks.
and like I said, you can barely see the section up here in front, so it'd be nice to try to maybe spin a little bit and take out the apartments, and like you said, focus on the sections actually we're building in.
I'm sorry, Trevor, I missed the last thing that you said.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this picture right here, you don't have the section up there in front, the heart, I guess we call it, is it still called the heart? I don't know, I think it's been several years ago we called it the heart.
Yeah.
Still referred to it as the park.
Yeah, up there.
That's
You
kind
don't
of the
can't see that.
overall project. is-
Maybe spin this way, like
Yeah.
Keith was saying, you can take a picture of the new courts and everything, and maybe that shows that
Yeah.
how much the park has grown.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
All righty. Any other business from council or questions from Mark? I do have a quick question. It's something small, but I recall last year, coming in here and the town was still open on Juneteenth, but I realized that I think the rest of the county and municipalities were closed. Are we planning to be closed this year for Juneteenth?
We had not planned, but we can look at doing that if that's something that,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate. I think it's a federal holiday now. And from what I saw, I think City of Hendersonville was closed in the county and
okay?
other places. So if it's possible. All righty, any other?
Oh,
Go ahead.
if we could get, maybe an email to, Roy from Babel's Ice Cream down here. I was talking to him the other day, and he wasn't sure what events were coming up, and he's trying to schedule employees to come into work when we are having an event, or we are having, something going on at the park, so that he can plan ahead on it. He's just trying to line up employees for those events. If there's, I know like the next concert, we haven't really figured that out yet, but if there's anything else that we do, like movie in the park and all that stuff. If we-
Farmer's market.
Yeah, and I told him that the farmer's market's now gonna
Yeah.
be moving. But if we
Yeah.
could maybe relay some of the most updated that we do have in town, that we'll send them
Yeah.
as we get
That's what I'm
more.
thinking, too.
So just so he can schedule, to have people come into work and
Yeah.
staff and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think he's doing a great job, and, I think people really appreciate him being out there.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like Christine said, the
I think I did.
farmer's market
made
in
it
there
or
will
something.
help, and of course, we'll let them know
Yeah.
Tuesdays,
Wait a
but,
second, I think y'all both need
I
to
was
sign
gonna make
something.
a back home, I was Dr. Pepper, but that's okay, we'll let that slide. You still have root beer.
Dr. Pepper's yucky anyway.
Oh, I love it. So upset. That's okay.
Okay.
We won't think baby.
All righty, sounds good. Anything else from council? All right.
June 30th?
Oh, June 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I actually, thank you for the reminder, I glossed right over that. I know I said something last week, but yeah, we've got our fiscal year closeout meeting on June 30th at 9, so,
That's a good flag. Thank you.
all right.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second to adjourn? Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
What's we forget?
Mr. Sherlock on the maker.
I was like, what the heck, is everybody there?
Oh, yeah. Jim and then Trevor. It was, June 1st and Trevor said.
Yeah, we're doing everything.